What is going on, YouTube? This is Jim back with another video, and today I'm here to talk to you guys about Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Now, I just beat this via Xbox Game Pass, and this concludes the original trilogy of Lara Croft and her origin story and how she became the Tomb Raider that, at least on paper, the one we're supposed to know and love leading into the slew of games that came out in the late 90s and 2000s. But for me, I could say that Lara Croft was never this iconic figure that I looked up to or that I really even cared so much about her origin story. So this trilogy, and really more than that, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the third of these games in the trilogy, really had to do a good job of making me care. And I have to say that after it's all said and done, I really do care. I think they did a great job with Lara Croft and explaining kind of who and what she is, putting her through some of these really difficult decisions and watching her grow and mature over the games. Now, the first two games were mechanically great, although I would argue that the story was not that good. And Shadow of the Tomb Raider takes a lot of those criticisms and really tries to put them in the forefront. You have a lot more cutscenes than you did in the past. They've toned down drastically on combat in favor of exploration, and they've tried to give Lara and Jonah a lot more screen time, at least in their interactions with each other, to really make you understand why Jonah is so important to Lara. Now, on all of these fronts, I could say I think the game succeeds largely. There are some imperfections, but let's focus on the positives first. First and foremost, the game itself is gorgeous. Now, I played this on my Xbox One X with an HDR-enabled television, and the game does gives you an option between running it in 4K or at 60 frames a second at a lower resolution. I opted to play the game in 4K, and what a great decision I made. Other than some minor hiccups here and there, particularly in some of the larger hub areas, the game runs very well, and it is one of the prettiest games I've ever seen. Definitely a technical showcase for what HDR could be, especially when you have these great terrains and these, lush jungle scenes, bright blue water, nice clear sky. Then stark contrast, these dark, gloomy caves full of dust and fire and that sort of thing. And wow, it really, really looks beautiful. So alone on that, I think the game is worth the price of admission if you have the right gear, just to really enjoy that eye candy, because it is phenomenal. Now, moving on outside of the graphics, the gameplay is very repetitive to what the other Tomb Raider games are. If you've played Uncharted, very similar in that nature. You're going to do a lot of exploration and some fighting. Exploration and fighting. There will be some puzzle solving. Tomb Raider does something that I really like, though, with these open hub areas that give you lots of options to go off and kind of explore on your own. If you want to just stick to the main story, there's a quest marker. Just go there and continue on your adventure. But if you want to walk around and talk to people, receive side quests, which unfortunately mostly amounted to fetch quests, which weren't that exciting, to be honest. But if you want to do that, that's there. Or if you just want to go off on your own and find the optional tombs or crypts and level up your character, you can do that too. And what I really, really liked is that they actually were useful things. It wasn't like gun parts or anything in the past. They're going to be perks and skills unique to getting those in those tombs. You can't get them anywhere else. And they really do affect your gameplay. And I thought for that, the exploration was a lot of fun and rewarding, because I knew at the end I was going to get something that was going to make the rest of the game more enjoyable. And it really, really did. I got some really cool skills later on in the game, and genuinely felt like a badass. And I think that's a great, great progression of a character to kind of start off weak and not really so powerful, and then become empowered and fight back. And it's a really, really cool feeling. I really did enjoy that. So you have the optional tombs, you have the optional quests, or you could just, again, stick to the main story and just blow through it. It took me about 17 hours to beat. So that was kind of a smattering of both. I did not get every collectible. I did not get every little side thing to do. But the game really, really, really lends itself to being lost and just starting exploring the world around you and uncovering all of these things that are hidden. So each area will have the random objective that just pops up. You might see something that looks out of place and you go collect it, or you shoot it or something, and then a prompt will pop up and say, hey, go do that 5 more times, and this will give you experience. Or go find these hidden shrines and learn how to read this ancient monolith, which will give you a clue to even better gear or an even better skill. And that was really a lot of fun. So there were a lot of things that I got in my game. A reinforced knife was one. The pulley where you can pull down barricaded doors was another that you would never have to get in the game, and it's actually not going to be given to you. You have to go out and find it on your own. And I thought that was really rewarding, and I love that. So the idea of the pace of the game, it's there and fast-paced if you want it to be, but if you're not interested in any of that, and you want to take your time and kind of go explore, you can do that too, or a mixture of the both. And I think they did a really good job with the pacing. I think they've really learned their lesson from the first two games, and I think this is by far the strongest Tomb Raider of any Tomb Raider ever made. Again, I wasn't that big of a fan of the original ones, but definitely of this trilogy, it has gotten better and better and better. And I compare it to how good Assassin's Creed was versus how good Assassin's Creed 2 was. And it was just a monumental change in tone and look and feel. I think these guys nailed it. And for that, I love the game. Now, there's a couple things that I wasn't a big fan of, though, and this isn't all roses, but primarily, as you can tell, I was a big fan. The character development between Lara Croft and Jonah, definitely first and foremost. Jonah has always been a background ancillary character, and I think you have to look at a game like Uncharted and see that conversation between Nathan Drake and Sully to understand how important it is to have a wingman, to have somebody, the voice on the other end of the radio, who's kind of guiding you through things and helping you out, who's there to give you moral support, to kind of give you some quest advice as you go on. Up until this game, Jonah has always been the yes man. Yeah, Laura, hey, you okay? Hey, you okay? And unfortunately, a lot of this game does start off with Jonah just being the stereotypical yes man, not really helping out very much. You know, you do play together. There was actually a few instances where you had to work together to solve a puzzle, which was awesome. I would have loved to see more of that, but unfortunately, it quickly fades away. And it's almost as if the development team got scared of that idea, and Jonah unfortunately reverts back to the voice on the radio. Now, his disappearance halfway through the game and some situations, spoiler-free, that occur later on definitely trigger Lara to become something else, kind of like Oliver Queen, the Arrow, and I specifically chose those words because towards the end of the game, Lara has a pretty legitimate mental breakdown and turns into an absolute maniacal serial killer badass, and I loved it. What a great story arc for her. But Jonah, unfortunately, just doesn't serve that role, and after playing Uncharted and seeing Sully and Nate, it's so hard to get that energy and that chemistry, and I think Jonah is a great character in of himself. They just didn't use him in the right way, so I was disappointed about that. Some of the other characters you'll meet character Ruanartu. I'm probably saying her name wrong. She is the leader of this tribe that you're going to have to work with. They try to make you care about her and her son. It just didn't work for me. There's supposed to be a sense of urgency here. Lara Croft has triggered an apocalypse, and she's trying to stop it before the evil Trinity stops it. So there's this guy, Pedro Dominguez, who is the leader of Trinity, and she's chasing after him, to the point that her and Jonah get in this really big fight at the very beginning of the game because Jonah wants to stop and help all these villagers who've been, destroyed. Their towns have been destroyed by this monumental like rainstorm and flood that Lara inadvertently caused. And Laura's like, we don't have time for that. We got to go get this thing. Then fast forward 5 or 6 hours in the game, and suddenly we're spending time with this woman and her son, and we're helping him become a king and collecting items for him. And it just kind of loses its momentum, and I'm frustrated by that. That should have been side quest stuff, but that was main quest stuff that you kind of had to slog through. So you got the first part of the game, tons of exploration. You're really kind of weak. You don't have a lot of good gear. You don't have a lot of cool abilities yet. Then you kind of slowly work through that in the middle part of the game. Then the last part of the game, balls to the wall, full throttle, amazing, tons of explosions, tons of fighting, tons of exploration, really fun, really difficult. Not difficult per se, but more unique challenges. And some of the tombs that you fight later on are and kind of work your way through. You don't fight the tomb. But, working your way through the tomb later on, very, very rewarding, very satisfying. So it's kind of like a tale of two games almost. You have like Act 1 and Act 3, which are phenomenal, and then Act 2 just doesn't really make a lot of sense. But overall, huge ringing endorsement for this game. I really did love it. I'm really excited to see what they do with her character next. But if you didn't play any of the old games from the 90s or the 2000s, don't worry about it. all that marketing bunk about this is watching her. It even says it on the back of the box. Watch her in that iconic moment when she becomes a Tomb Raider. If it happened, I wasn't exactly sure when it was. Obviously, she has an adventure and a role to fill. I think she's a pretty tough lady already. I don't think she needs to have a defining moment. Although, I guess you could say later on in the game, something does happen that kind of makes her rethink who she is and what she's doing. I didn't find that as a defining moment. If I had to give this game on a rating, on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the worst thing I ever played, 10 being the best I ever played, I'm going to give it a solid 9. And there was tons more to do, but I am way backlogged. I am moving on to other adventures, but they're still releasing DLC for this game. There was a slew of challenges and puzzles and tombs and crypts that I did not even know about existed. So there's a lot to do, and there is a lot of fun to be had if this is your kind of game. And if you like those action adventure games, I think you're going to love it. Just be warned that in the second part of the game, I think you might check out a little bit and roll your eyes, but don't worry, stick with it. By the third and final act, boy, oh boy, does it get good. With that, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you like what you see, please consider commenting, rating, and subscribing. But if not, that's okay too. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.